Mr. Hice is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Jaffe, let me begin with you. The total price tag of this alleged COVID bill was nearly $2 trillion, and Congress had actually already spent and passed a $4 trillion COVID relief package, of which, by the way, about more than $1 trillion of that had not been spent when this bill was passed. What, in your opinion, was the impact of this unprecedented spending on inflation?
I think it was very inflationary, as the numbers show. The state and local funds didn't really have much of an effect in 2021 because they really were not spent. But a lot of the other stimulus, including the individual checks that went out, clearly went right back into the economy and drove up prices at a time that we had supply chain issues.
As of January this year, in fact, the inflation rate has risen to a record-breaking 7.5%, higher than at any point in the last 40 years. Just, I think we all know, but what are some of the impacts that this has on the average American family?
It really undermines people's sense of security. People who have saved a fixed amount of money for retirement, for example, now they have to worry, is that going to run out? Or people who are living paycheck to paycheck, are their wage increases going to be keeping up with the increased price of gas, food, and other essentials? So I think it really undermines people's sense of security.
You know, one of the other issues of this whole thing that is greatly disturbing to me is the fact that this massive Democratic spending bill included some $350 billion for state and local governments, in addition to $100 billion that Congress had spent just a year before. But $350 billion in this alone with no guardrails. So how in the world are we even having a hearing today, supposedly regarding oversight on $350 billion that had no guardrails on it? Do you know of any guardrails?
Well, there was one guardrail, which I think was very unfortunate, which is the restriction on making deposits into an underfunded pension fund. And I think a lot of state and local governments could have used that to have achieved more long-term fiscal stability. Another unfortunate guardrail was the restriction on using it to backfill tax cuts. And tax cuts in many states would help stimulate economic growth. Other than that, I agree, there were very few restrictions on how the money could be used, and it clearly has not been used in a uniform way to recover from the pandemic. It's been used really to fund a wish list of pre-existing ideas.
So here we are having a fake oversight hearing on money that we don't have any idea where it went, really. It's my understanding that you have submitted a FOIA request to the Treasury Department to try to get a report on the funding in this ARPA bill. Have you been successful?
Right. Last September, I submitted a FOIA request asking for all of the interim fiscal recovery reports, and that was not handled. I resubmitted the request in January, and I'm still waiting for a response. Oddly enough, while I was preparing for this, I stumbled across a page on the Treasury's website where they had, in fact, posted all the reports, and I analyzed them for my testimony today. But they haven't really made much of an effort to alert the public to where they can find all of that information.
So what reason have they given you, or have they given you any reason for not providing an ARPA funding report?
The response is really strange. The FOIA representative in Treasury last year told me, our FOIA office doesn't have these reports, so we can't fill your request. But Treasury clearly had these reports because they had to be submitted on Treasury's online portal. So I didn't find the fact that the FOIA office itself didn't have the reports to be a very convincing reason to not fill the FOIA.
Well, I thank you for being here today. And yet again, Madam Chair, I mean, without these reports being made public, there is simply no one, including this committee, that is having any degree of oversight over the money that has been spent. This is unacceptable. And with that, I yield back.